Okay, and we are live. All right, everybody, you should be seen in there, and we're just going to make sure everything's up and working. I have got Michele Fiore here, and this is Gavin, of course, and we're going to talk about what's happening in Oregon, what happened in Oregon last week, but also what's going on right now and in the courts and things like that, so we can get you up to speed, and you can find out what you can do to help and how we can keep the message going. So, Michele, hey, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Gavin.
Yeah, this should be good. And, we had quite a week last week, and I know that the Patriots of America really appreciate your effort and Mike Arnold's and the other representatives. And at the end of the day, for getting the Patriots out safely, I think most of us would give credit to God, but at the same time, there's a lot of people working hard to make sure that the FBI didn't just go in there and commit murder again. So I think that it's quite a message, and we learned a lot last week.
You know, it was definitely eye-opening. It was unexpected, and definitely wasn't something on the agenda for Wednesday evening.
Right. Yeah, I know. And when that call came in, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? And so there's some things that you really can't plan for. And I think a lot of times what we're seeing is that political groups and organized stuff, sometimes it takes so long to get there and get everything in place that the damage is already done. And so I think all of us in America, patriots, need to learn to be Minutemen again. And it's different maybe now than it was in 1776. We have different tools and different resources because the goal is to avoid violence. The goal is to expose darkness to light and make a difference that way, so we can try and save liberty. But first of all, do you want to, most people know who you are, but just tell us who you are, just in case.
So my name is Michele Fiore. I'm an assemblywoman in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a two-term assemblywoman in Las Vegas. I'm running for Congress right now. But I will tell you, one of the things about me is I am truly like a fighter for our people. And so that's who I am.
Right. And we need people. I mean, look, this is what I want to point out to the world when you're looking for, your representatives. And we need to send people to federal Congress that can be spokesmen and tenacious, because we know that a congressman's not going to walk in and fix the federal government just like that at this point. But it's a powerful voice for the people to have somebody in there who's actually representing, because most representatives aren't. But the same at a state and a local level. People would really start electing sheriffs. And the problem people have is they hear a few good things in a political forum, or they say, the candidate says Constitution a few times, and we're so desperate. We're so terribly desperate for hope in this country that, we hear a few good things and people are like, well, he's our man. And what you need to start looking for is real action, not a candidate who gets up there and says, well, when elected, I'm going to do this and this and this. The tyranny has been going for a long time. And you need to look at not what they're going to do, prove it by what you have done, by the stands you're taking. And this is one of the great things about Michele, is that you put yourself on the line, you get a lot of unpopular opinion, and that to me is representing. To me, representing, especially in this day and age, more laws is not what's fixing our country. We need less laws, but we need representatives that represent. And that's what you did to me in Oregon that day, is you actually represented what you're there to represent.
I have to tell you that one of the things that is most important, like you said, is action. And a lot of times here in Nevada, there's a few of us that catch a lot of heat for that. Assemblywoman Shelley Shelton and Assemblyman John Moore, who was up there. And then we had our Idaho reps. And then, of course, we had Matt Shea. It's very, very difficult what took place Wednesday when you think a group of us we were meeting in Portland to meet with the attorneys and see what we can do to get our folks out of jail, to see who we have to talk to see what charges they were charged with, and it's all bogus because in my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but I have to tell you, the more and more I study this, it's very, very scary. in my opinion, worst case scenario, you're looking at a bunch of cowboys camping in the middle of nowhere at a refugees with what they're claiming to be federal property, which once upon a time was personal property, which I still haven't seen the legislative approval from Oregon that the federal government actually purchased the refuge. But on top of all of that, even let's say they did something wrong, you're looking at our folks are basically prisoners for their political free speech and worst case scenario, civil disobedience, which is maybe a misdemeanor, which would be out on bail. I mean, you're talking, they have these men who are heads of their households, who bring in the income, who do all the chores, and now all of a sudden you have the people at home with no father, no helper. I mean, the ripple effect of what the justice or injustice is just heart-wrenching.
Absolutely. And really, this goes back to, to this Constitution right here. It goes back to natural law. And the reality is, I don't know why it's so complicated for America. We're always saying, well, there's this statute and that statute. There is no law that violates the higher law that can be law. And so when you have a federal government illegally occupying our land, and we say, no, we're just going to go in and use our land again. And then they say, well, you're breaking this statute and this statute and this statute, be it a misdemeanor, be it a felony, whatever. It's not law. And the problem is what our judges are perpetrating is not law. What the so-called probable cause is not law. And so we've lost the rule of law in this country. And maybe you can speak to that. But let's go back to the beginning, Michele, and let's talk about, okay, most people here, if they're taking the time to listen to this, they probably heard the live stream or most of it. We have over 500 people in the live stream right now, and it's growing. I'm sure we won't get 60,000 because it's not exactly world news today. But these are the people that really want to know what's really happening in our country. And so let's talk about that a little bit. What we heard was up to the point of we were talking to David. Everybody else had gone out. On the second day, David was left. And so everybody's kind of trying to figure out what to do. And then Mike's working in the background, and it sounds like he got the call to you or to somebody there on the front, and he also got that call to us, and we were getting ready to play it. And we can kind of hear it on the phone a little bit in the background. And then David says, okay, we're going to go out, and everybody says hallelujah, and he goes out. And then we hear that phone disconnected. So what is kind of your take on this, and what can you tell people? What did you see on the ground there from everyone?
Well, so this is what I saw, and there was actually footage captured there was a helicopter, I think Channel 12, that actually has the footage, and maybe we can request it. Right. But they have a lot of footage. They actually have David coming out with his hands up. I mean, they have live footage, and I'll email you a link to what I saw today. But so what took place was when we were on the live stream, Gavin, and when Graham and I got into the Bearcat, Graham and I were off the live stream until we got to the refuge. And then once we got to the refuge, I believe you and Chris were on the live stream, and then I was on the FBI phone. Right. And so talking about his grievances. And let me tell you, I had such a long conversation today with Bill Fry, David's dad, and what an amazing man he is. And David Fry had these grievances that haven't been addressed, and these grievances are really real, and I have the same grievances as well. Why should I have to pay for everyone else's abortions? Why should I have to give half of my paycheck away to things that I don't want to? Why should I mean, all of these grievances that David was talking about, he's absolutely right. And it's tyranny. What all the grievances he literally talked about was tyranny.
Yes. Yeah, and they were very real grievances. And the reality is, I mean, look, the whole world listened. The media can spin it any way they want, but we were there. The world was listening. We heard the FBI in the background on that first night. They were there for blood. They were there to instigate, and that's exactly what they were doing. So the media is trying desperately to spin this like, well, in the end, the FBI negotiated this and we fixed it. And because they want to make themselves out to be the good guy. But it's very important that America understands the FBI were the instigators from the very beginning. The FBI were the instigators in illegally blocking a road and murdering Lavoy Finicum and setting up that ambush. The FBI were instigating this night as they were in the background. I mean, it was like watching trolls on the internet as they were in the background shouting at them, no one supports you. I mean, this is not negotiating in any negotiation book. And the Patriots made a bold outcry and the world heard. And with that and the pressure behind the scenes and that light shined on their dark ways, they had to back off. And so that next morning, it seems like, Michele, their behavior was a little different. It sounds like they kind of knew they were being watched, and you were there, and Franklin Graham was there. And so they knew the eyes of the world were on them. And it doesn't really sound like they were necessarily more competent, but they knew that they weren't going to get away with an ambush. And so they were kind of behaving in a little bit more of a delicate way. Am I reading that right?
Well, so I must tell you that from the minute we got to the refuge to we left, they were absolutely polite, and they were the most professional that I've ever seen. And again, I don't know if it's because maybe the negotiator didn't know what an elected official was, or didn't know who Graham was, or didn't realize the world was watching.
Right.
I don't know if he realizes that his behavior can affect laws that we can start writing. I'm not sure what twisted, because when I was on the phone the night before, it took everything for me not to reach through that phone and just want to touch Mark, because as I'm trying to calm them down, they are being very mean.
Right.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I was just making sure everything was in order here. So, no, I agree. And to me, I mean, we know that the FBI is not principled in this. And that's why, I know I go out of my way to make sure that they're not getting the credit. But, and at the same time, I know they're humans. You saw their human side. You saw the emotion. And so at the same time, I want these people to change. I want these people that took oaths to the Constitution. I want them to step up and actually start defending it. But I think really what we saw was, here's what happens when the world is watching the FBI. Suddenly the bully behaves a little differently, and they have to be a lot more careful. But are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I thought you stopped talking because I don't know if it was my audio that cut out.
Yeah, why don't you? Your camera looks like it might be on, even though it's not really showing anything. If you X out your camera, it'll save you some bandwidth, and I think that might be part of the problem. There we go. And let me make sure. Okay, there you go. Okay, so tell us what we couldn't see. They're walking out, and just kind of tell us that story. What did you see there? Because it sounds like it was pretty powerful.
Yeah. So what you couldn't see. So when we first got there, they pulled the Bearcat up like 30 feet away from the tent. And I saw David walk out of the tent. He was like talking, and he like took his black like hoodie jacket and put it over his head. I think he had a beanie on, and then he took the beanie off of his head, and he went back into the tent. But then Sean and Sandy, now when we drove up with the Bearcat, we were 30 feet from the tent. Graham and I, we were allowed to talk on the microphone to let them know we were there, we were in position, we saw the tent, we see them, and now it's time for them to follow the orders of the FBI. So once they walk up that hill, we'll be up that hill waiting for them. So that's what took place first. And while we were there, and we said that, we saw the flag